you're still venting high-efficiency boilers and water heaters in plain white PVC in commercial jobs in Wisconsin, this episode is for you. Wisconsin has officially tied plastic venting for fuel-fired appliances to UL 1738, and that's going to change how we design, order, and install vent systems on a lot of projects. Today we're going to talk about what UL 1738 actually is, how we got here, what the new Wisconsin rule says, and how DSPS is currently treating repairs versus new systems. I'll also hit how this affects 1- and 2-family work under the UDC, because the answer is there, it depends on what the book says. And just so you know where all this is coming from, this episode is a mix of actual code language, DSPS publications, continuing education class I attended on the new fuel gas rules, and direct correspondence with DSPS and local inspectors about how they're handling UL 1738 and the whole repair versus new system question. Welcome back to Mastering Wisconsin Plumbing. I'm Ryan Boggs, master plumber here in Wisconsin. I spend my days somewhere between the field, the prefab shop, and the classroom, trying to help apprentices, journeymen, and foremen make sense of the Wisconsin Plumbing Code and all the other codes that try to sneak into our work. Today, we're going to step a little bit outside of straight plumbing code and into the fuel gas world, because what you do with plastic venting on boilers, furnaces, and water heaters can absolutely become your problem on a job. And quick reminder, this podcast is not a substitute for reading the actual code or for talking to DSPS or your local inspector. I'm going to give you dates and section numbers as accurately as I can based on DSPS publications and the Wisconsin Administrative Code, but always check the current code text and your authority having jurisdiction. So let's start with why UL 1738 even exists. For years, the common move in high-efficiency appliances, especially modulated condensing or ModCon boilers, was to grab whatever DWV plastic you already had. Schedule 40 PVC, right? It's cheap, readily available, always in stock. The problem is, those DWV products were never designed or tested as flue gas venting systems. They're listed to plumbing standards, not venting standards, and those plumbing standards explicitly say they're not evaluated for venting poisonous flue gases like carbon monoxide. Meanwhile, condensing appliances are throwing cooler, wet, slightly acidic flue gas through that pipe for hours and hours. Over time, that can mean chemical attack from condensate, softening or embrittlement of the plastic, glue joints failing, and in the worst case, flue gas and CO leaking into the building. As those failures started to show up, cracked elbows, joint failures, warped pipe, UL in the code world recognized that we need a separate, dedicated standard for gas vent systems, not just leftover DWV pipe on sale. That's what gave rise to UL 1738. So what is UL 1738? The full name is Venting Systems for Gas Burning Appliances Categories 2, 3, and 4. A couple of key points packed into that name. It covers venting systems, not just pipe, but pipe, fitting, joints, terminations, and usually the cement instructions as a complete package. It's specifically for Category 2, 3, and 4 gas appliances, which include most of the ModCon's high-efficiency furnaces and some water heaters that have flue gas temps and can produce condensate. Under UL 1738, the venting system has to pass a whole series of tests around temperature resistance. Can it handle continuous flue gas temperature it's rated for? Chemical resistance, especially to acidic condensate. Pressure integrity and leakage. Will joints hold under positive pressure without leaking combustion products? Joint strength. Will glued or gasketed connections hold up over time? Markings and traceability. You must be able to identify that it's UL 1738 and what system it belongs to. One important nuance, UL 1738, isn't only plastic. There are stainless steel, special gas vents that are listed to UL 1738, and they're thermoplastic systems, engineered PVC or polypropylene, that are listed to it. In the last several code cycles, NFPA 54 and the International Fuel Gas Code have been updated so that you can use plastic venting. It either has to meet product standard the appliance manufacturer calls out, or be listed and labeled in accordance with UL 1738. So UL 1738 has basically become the benchmark for this plastic vent system that really was designed and tested for venting flue gas, not just for draining a sink. So let's bring it home to Wisconsin. On the commercial side, fuel gas is governed by SPS 365, which adopts International Fuel Gas Code with Wisconsin amendments. Wisconsin's Division of Industry Services has announced that Wisconsin Commercial Building Code, or CBC, is moving to the 2021 ICC codes. According to DSPS, the state adopts 2021 ICC as of September 1st, 2025, and plans submitted on or after November 1st, 2025 have to comply with that updated CBC. As part of that update, DSPS added a very important amendment to SPS 365.0501. It's subsection 4, and it reads, "Plastic vent systems associated with gas-fired appliances shall meet requirements of UL 1738, inclusive of specific testing and marking requirements for pipe, fittings, and cement." DSPS also highlights this on their commercial buildings and HVAC pages. They specifically note that there have been multiple inquiries about the application of the 2021 IFGC as amended by SPS 365.0501 subsection 4, and they spell out that amendment requires all fuel-fired equipment to be provided plastic venting materials that meet UL 1738. So in plain job site language for Wisconsin commercial buildings under CBC, if you are using plastic venting on gas-fired appliances like a ModCon boiler, high-efficiency furnace, or condensing water heater, that plastic vent system, the pipe, the fittings, and cement has to be listed and labeled to UL 1738. All right, quick boundary check here. Where does this apply? The UL 1730 amendment we're talking about is in SPS 365, which is part of the Wisconsin Commercial Building Code. Commercial buildings in Wisconsin include buildings with 3 or more dwelling units, places of employment, and buildings where the public comes and goes. 1 and 2 family dwellings are under separate code package. The Uniform Dwelling Code, UDC, SPS 320 to 325, that's where we have 323, the 1 and 2 family chimneys and vents chapter. So, SPS 365.0501 subsection 4, the UL 1738 plastic vent rule equals Commercial Building Code, not UDC. Now, just because UDC doesn't have that same sentence copied in it, doesn't mean UL 1738 never shows up on the residential side. Here's what SPS 323.14 subsection 1 says for 1 and 2 families. All gas-fired equipment shall be provided with vent pipes conforming with SPS 323.152E unless the manufacturer specifies other materials. And in the same section, plastic pipes and fittings used in venting flue gas shall bear the manufacturer's identification data. The key phrase there is, unless the manufacturer specifies other materials. In practical terms, on a 1 and 2 family work, UDC doesn't directly say, thou shalt use UL 1738, but it does say you must follow the venting provisions in SPS 323.15 unless the manufacturer tells you to use something else. If the manufacturer says, use a 1738 listed plastic vent system, then that becomes the rule for that installation, even under the UDC. So for houses, you still have to read the book on every piece of equipment. If the instructions call out UL 1738, then that's what you're bound to. The code text we just read, plastic venting systems shall meet UL 1738, is pretty blunt. But in real world, we have 1 million existing commercial boilers and furnaces already vented in Schedule 40 PVC. That's where DSPS interpretation and guidance comes in. In correspondence with DSPS, this is their direction. So new systems remodels and equipment repairs in existing commercial buildings, the guidance says the UL 1738 amendment is tied to the 2021 IFGC adoption for use with the Wisconsin Commercial Building Code and is intended for new systems installed in a commercial building. If you are doing an equipment repair, for example, replacing a unit that has simply reached end of life, the requirement is that you install the new appliance per its listing and installation instructions. If the appliance listing requires UL 1738 venting assemblies, then you must use a UL 1738 system. If the listing does not require UL 1738 and still lists Schedule 40 solid core PVC as an acceptable option, then UL 1738 is not automatically required for that repair under this interpretation. They also noted that a remodel would include changing out the piping as well, not just swapping the appliance. Once you're changing that system around, you're effectively under the new system requirements. So the simple decision tree for a commercial building looks like this. New construction or remodel of a vent distribution system. If it's plastic venting associated with a gas-fired appliance, it needs to be UL 1738, period. Straight equipment replacement or repair, open up the appliance book. If the manufacturer says UL 1738 vent systems only, then you're in UL 1738 land. If the manufacturer still lists Schedule 40 solid core PVC or some other non-UL 1738 material as an acceptable and existing vent is in good shape, DSPS is currently saying that can be treated as a repair, not force a full system vent replacement. Obviously, you always want to confirm current interpretation with DSPS with them or your local inspector because this kind of guidance can evolve over time. But that's the basic framework they've described and where it currently sits. So what does this look like practically when you're out on a job or doing prefab? You're going to start seeing more vent materials marked specifically as UL 1738 flue gas venting systems instead of just generic PVC. Complete systems like System 1738 from IPEX are UL 1738. Certified for certain categories 2 and 4 appliances and include pipe fittings and cement that are part of that listing. There's also stainless steel special gas vents listed to UL 1738 that can give you higher temperature ratings and different routing options, especially on big commercial boilers. On shop drawings and submittals, expect designers and plan reviewers to start asking very specifically, is this vent system UL 1738 listed? Where is that called out in your cut sheets? From a prefab perspective, you may end up building UL 1738 vent assemblies, factory-built offsets, manifolds, terminations, using only the fittings and pipe that are part of that listing. And also keep in mind with that cement, you'll need to pay attention to the manufacturer-specific instructions for glue, cure times, support spacing, and clearances, just like we do for CPVC. This is a great teaching moment for apprentices, and honestly for some of us old dogs too. A few lessons you can draw out on the job or in the classroom. 1. Codes and listings work together. UL 1738 started as a listing standard. NFPA 54 and IFGC began referencing it. Now Wisconsin has gone one step further and written it directly into the state administrative code for plastic venting in commercial buildings. We've always used PVC is not a legal argument. Historically, costs and convenience drove that decision. UL and code bodies have documented that DWV Schedule 40 does not meet the safety standard for flue gas venting of carbon monoxide. UL 1738 raises the bar to something that's actually tested for the job we're asking it to do. Repairs versus new system actually matters. When you walk into a boiler room now, you should be asking, is this a new system I'm designing or a repair to an existing system? What does the appliance listing say about the vent materials? Documentation and markings matter. UL 1738 listed products must be clearly marked so inspectors and installers can identify them. If you can't find the marking, you shouldn't just assume it's UL 1738 because it's white and round. Let me finish with some practical advice, especially if you're doing prefabrication or running commercial jobs in Wisconsin. Update your standard details. Anywhere your typical detail library shows 3-inch PVC vent on a commercial modcon or condensing water heater, that probably needs to be revised to UL 1738 listed plastic venting system or a specific listed product line. Clean up your specs and submittals. Make sure your spec sections and submittal packages clearly state that the plastic vent systems for gas-fired appliances in commercial buildings must be UL 1738. If you're a contractor, push back if the design shows generic DWV and the job clearly falls under SPS 365.05.01 subsection 4. Talk with your wholesaler. Make sure they understand you're looking for UL 1738 listed systems, not just Schedule PVC. Ask for cut sheets and listings that specifically say UL 1738 so your inspectors and DSPS plan reviewers have something clear in front of them. Have a repair plan. For replacement work on existing commercial equipment, Build a habit of checking 3 things. Is this truly a repair and not a remodel? What does the new appliance manual say about the vent materials? Is the existing vent system in good condition and materially allowed by that manual? If the answer to any of these starts to look sketchy, talk to the inspector. Train your crew. Use tailgate talks, apprentice classes, and shop meetings to explain why UL 1738 exists and how to recognize it in the field. The more people understand the why, which is mainly carbon monoxide safety and long-term performance, the less it just feels like another hoop to jump through. All right, that's a lot of talk about one line of code. To recap, UL 1738 is a venting system standard for Category 2, 3, and 4 gas appliances. It makes sure that plastic vent systems are actually tested for temperature, pressure, chemical resistance, and leakage, not just for draining a sink. Wisconsin has now written UL 1738 directly into Commercial Building Code SPS 3650504 subsection 4 for plastic venting systems associated with gas-fired appliances. On repairs, DSPS is currently treating simple equipment replacements differently than full new systems, but you still have to follow the appliance listing every time. On the residential side, under UDC, UL 1738 shows up whenever the manufacturer calls out for it in the instructions. If you've got questions, examples from your own jobs, or you're running into pushback on submittals, I'd love to hear from you. You can drop a comment on the YouTube version of the show, send a message through the podcast platform, or shoot me an email at plumout@gmail.com. And just a reminder, all of the reference material for this episode, code citations, DSPS publications, UL 1738 resources are included in the show notes, along with the decision tree diagram to help you quickly determine whether UL 1738 listing applies on your specific project. Thanks for listening to Mastering Wisconsin Plumbing. Stay safe, read the book, and I'll catch you on the next episode.